Welcome back to Positive Economics. We are still on sustainable development, which is chapter 3. So today we're going to go into indicators of economic growth, social cohesion, and inequality, and environmental sustainability. And when we talk about indicators, we're talking about things that shows us what economic growth are, the features of economic growth. What are those things that bring about economic growth? So we start with economic growth. When we talk about economic growth, we're simply talking about increase in the country's GDP. So let's read anyway. Economic growth can be measured by the change in the national output over a period of time. National output is all the goods and services produced by a country. It is measured by the GDP. So there's economic growth if a country's output increased over time. That's what economic growth is about. So in chapter 11, we will see that the other measures are often used, such as GNP and GNI. However, all these measures ignore negative externalities or bad, such as pollution, longer working hours, and possible criminal activity. These measures may not take citizens' welfare into consideration. So using only GDP as a measure of economic success and citizen well-being is restrictive. The United Nations introduced a measure called the Human Development Index, HDI, as a wider measure of living standard in the country. It includes data on life expectancy at birth. So before we go further, GDP cannot only be used as a measure of economic growth, because economic growth does not only indicate output. There are other human factors that are part of economic growth, which is life expectancy, level of education, the well-being of citizens, lack of social vices. So that's why the United Nations also bring out what we call the HDI to be part of what we use when we are measuring the economic performance of a country, not only its outputs. So country's health standards, and on the average years of schooling and expected years of schooling, these are still part of Human Development Index. So these measures together with GNI per capita give an overall measure of economic welfare. So if we have to measure the economic growth of a country, we don't only measure the output, we also have to measure the economic welfare. And to measure the economic welfare, we have to use the Human Development Index. So we move further. Social cohesion and inequality. The effects of the 2008 Great Recession, vast years of efforts to reduce inequality in living standards. Inequality is a multidimensional challenge. It can include unequal access to education, discrimination for opportunities, and prejudice in society. There is inequality based on the fact that some people do not have access to education. So because you don't have access to education, it reduces the opportunity of you earning more in the society, and that reduces your income, which brings about income inequality. There's discrimination, which also hinder the level of income one can earn. Because with discrimination, it means you might be discriminated because of gender, you might be discriminated because of your color, you might be discriminated because of your religion. And this might not allow you to get, a well-paid job, and that reduces your level of income. And the society can be manipulative sometimes, and as a result of that, people might not, be able to have access to what will, enable them to grow. So that takes us to inequality. Inequality of income and wealth is how the income earned in an economy is distributed unequally across the population. Income is generated from many sources. Example given, wages or interest on bank accounts. Wealth is the value in money of assets held. Example given, property, land, or shares. There's income, and income is earned. And how do we earn income? We earn it through the job we do, which is wages, or the assets we have, which is in form of interest, or our savings in the bank, which is also in form of interest. And for wealth is the value in money of the assets we possess. For example, like the property we have, the value of the property we have, the monetary value of the property we have, the monetary value of the land we have, the monetary value of the shares we have is called wealth. So what are the effects of inequality? When there's inequality, it simply means there's a gap between the rich and the poor. So what are the effects of inequality? Inequality threatens growth. Individuals at the bottom of the income distribution spectrum lack the resources to invest in their skills and education. As a result, they may not be able to reach their full potential, which holds back economic growth. With income inequality or wealth inequality, it simply means people at the bottom of the income level will not be able to have enough fund or finance to be able to access or improve their skills and education. And if they are unable to improve their skills and education, they might not be able to have a dream job or land a dream job that would increase their income. And that would also reduce economic growth. So, inequality undermines social fairness. If the resources of an economy are unevenly distributed, it may threaten social cohesion and the sense of belonging. Both of these effects can be evident if the high levels of inequality are driven by greater numbers of people living in poverty. This group may face increased deprivation, homelessness, and social exclusion. There's social fear. If there's inequality, it reduces social fairness, because if the large proportion of the population are low income earners, that means the level of poverty in such country would increase. And as a result of that, people that have low level of poverty will be deprived. They will be deprived of their right. They might even lack home to stay in, and they might also be excluded from the society. And that is what social fairness is undermining when there is inequality. The third one, inequality of income can lead to inequality of opportunity. If income are distributed unequally, it can result in less equality of opportunity for the next generation. Family advantages that result from higher income and wealth may be passed on to the next generation, while other people become stuck in a cycle of multi-generational poverty traps. People remain in a poverty trap because the generation before them are in the same trap. So it is passed on, which is multi-generational poverty trap. Unlike, because there is unequal distribution of wealth. Those that have the minute minority with large income will only pass it to their next generation, which simply means those few high income earners will continue to rule the society, putting the rest of the society in abject poverty. So how do we measure inequality? So measuring inequality of income can be measured by the S80 and S20 share ratio and the Gini coefficient. So for the S80-20 share ratio, it simply means that we are measuring the annual income of the wealthiest 20% of household compared to the poorest 20%, which is a score of 5, means that the richest 20% of household receives 5 times as much income in a year as the poorest 20%. So a higher 80-20 ratio implies more income inequality. A lower score indicates less income inequality. So if you are having a higher ratio of 80-20, it means there's income inequality. But if you are having a lowest ratio of 80-20, it simply means there's perfectly income equality in the household. So then we have the Gini coefficient. For the Gini coefficient, it's more widely used measure of income inequality. It measures income inequality by comparing each household income position to that of all other households. So the coefficient is expressed as a percentage value between 0 to 100. So a value of 0 would suggest perfect equality of income. A value of 100 would indicate that all income in the economy was benefiting one household. That is perfect inequality of income. So for the Gini coefficient, when we have 0, it means income is perfectly distributed. But when we have 100 coefficient or ratio, it simply means there's income inequality. Unlike the 80%-20 ratio, if it is the 80%-20 ratio, when we have a lower score, it brings about income inequality, but a higher score gives about income equality. Unlike the Gini coefficient, 0% means there is income equality, but 100 score means there's income inequality. How could the government reduce inequality? To reduce inequality, the government could reduce inequality with any and all of the following strategies. Number one, progressive taxation. When we talk about progressive taxation, we're simply talking about taxing the highest earner to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. So high income earners are taxed at a higher proportion of their income. So here are the rules. Progressive taxation. In essence, higher marginal tax rates for those on higher salaries, which allows the government to redistribute the income. One of the ways to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor is to use progressive taxation. And when you use progressive taxation, it simply means a higher marginal tax rate is being charged on high income earners. And that would, the amount of tax charged, the revenue will be distributed to those with low income earners. Two, social welfare expenditure to assist the most vulnerable people in our society, including those who are not in position to generate employment or make an income from a business, including the sick, disabled people, and the elderly. So another way to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor is through social welfare payments or welfare expenditure, unemployment benefit, bursary, paying the disabled, and the rest. This might also allow the vulnerable ones in the society to be able to to spend and have income. The third way is spending on healthcare, universal healthcare for all, because part of what reduces income of household is the amount of money they spend on healthcare. So if government can provide free health facility or free healthcare, that might also increase the disposable income of household, and they might be able to have more income. Education and social services to help people on lower incomes. Government can also make education become accessible and free. If government is able to do that, people will have access to education, and that might increase their social. That might move them from one social ladder to another social ladder, and that can also increase their income level. And the last one is the minimum wage legislation to ensure a living wage for all. So with minimum wage, it can also increase the wages of the disadvantaged people in the society, and as a result of that, they might be able to earn more than what they used to earn, and that also can increase their income level and reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. So that is all about income inequality or wealth inequality. So the next one we're going to talk about is measuring environmental sustainability. Measuring environmental sustainability, the Environmental Performance Index evaluates the environmental performance of a country's policy. It has two main components, which are environmental health and ecosystem vitality. Now, what about environmental health? It measures air pollution, the quality of drinking water, and sanitation standards. That means the kind of life we live, the kind of water we drink, and our environment, how conducive our environment is. And for the ecosystem, it measures the wastewater treatment, agriculture, nitrogen use, efficiency forest cover, fish stocks, biodiversity, and habitat. That means we're talking about our ecosystem, the place we live, our habitat. Another commonly used index is the Global Green Economy Index. It measures the country's performance in 4 key areas. One, leadership and climate change, efficiency sectors, market investment, and the environment. So we're going to start one at a time. The KUSNET environment curve. This is a KUSNET environment curve. It shows the relationship between environmental damage and the level of wealth in the country. So the KUSNET environmental curve shows the relationship between how the environment is deteriorating and the level of wealth that is being derived in the course of damaging the environment. So environmental damage will increase as income per capita increases until a turning point is reached. Once the turning point has been reached, environmental damage will decrease as income per capita increases. So the turning point is where environmental damage will reduce as when the income capital will increase. This might be as a result of improvement in technology. So naturally, there are many ways in which elements of sustainability interacts with each other and hence affect the respective indicators. For example, progressive taxation enables the government to spend more money on education and health, which improves the skills and employability of all. This has the effect of boosting national economic growth. With progressive taxation, it increases the revenue for government, and as a result of that, government might be able to spend more on education, and that improves the skills of the disadvantaged people in the society, and they might become employable. Greater healthcare improves the population's quality of life and enables them to be more productive employees and entrepreneurs. This empowers them to generate better wage across the board and lowers inequality. With greater health improvement, with greater health care, employees will become more healthier, they'll be productive, and they can earn more based on their productivity. And also, they will be, whatever they spend will reduce because they will no longer spend on healthcare. The higher the standard of living of citizens, the more money consumers have to buy organic food, choose environmentally friendly products, and support businesses that respect the environment. If the standard of living is increasing or is improving for households, that would allow them to buy things that are more environmentally friendly. The cohesive society is united in wanting a better life for all citizens. As people feel they have relatively equal access to opportunities, they want to work together to pursue those possibilities for the betterment of the next generation through economic growth and environmental sustainability. The world will be cohesive. The world will work together if they figure out that they have equal opportunity. And if they have equal opportunity, that allows them to think about sustainable development, which will be better for the future generation. So that is also sustainable development for individuals, businesses, and governments. Sustainable development. What can we do? Sustainable behavior is shared responsibility of individuals, community, businesses, and government. Surveys regularly state that while we care about the environment, we also see a divide between our beliefs and values and our actions. It is hard to relate the personal consumption and behavior to bigger problems like climate change, pollution, and resource depletion. Yes, we might. There's sustainable behavior, which talks about our shared responsibility as an individual, as a society, as a business, as government. But it is difficult for us to figure out the level of our involvement when it comes to climate change, pollution, and resource depletion. So what do we do? Enabling the environment. The choices we make are restricted or enabled by the environment in which we live. For example, can people find a recycling facility in their local area? Is there enough information available on packaging to be able to tell which producers are responsible and which are not? So the first thing we need to put into consideration when it comes to sustainable development is that, does the environment enable us to understand the importance of sustainable development or not? How will the environment enable us? The environment will enable us by giving us access to information, by making facility available that would encourage us to think more of sustainable development. The second factor, habit and choices. Many sustainable behavior are not deliberate choice, but rather involuntary habits. How could we build an environment that encourages sustainable behavior and promote positive conduct? For example, we could encourage county councils and businesses to make 2 bins available in more locations, one for recycled waste and another for general waste. So habit and choices too. Things we see can influence our behavior. So if governments and businesses are able to provide us with resources that would encourage sustainable development, then we can abide to sustainable development. The third factor is maintaining new behaviors. New behaviors may be difficult to continue once started. Perhaps we need reinforcement to help continue sustainable behavior once it has begun. For example, Dress for Success Corp provides follow-up coaching and training for women so that these women can sustainably return to work. The IDA pursues a regional development mandate to build rural employment opportunities over time. So maintaining new behaviors. So we can start a new behavior, but to continue on that path, we need to constantly be reminded about what we have to do. So that is where we need reinforcements. Sustainable business development. Companies that have failed to adopt more suitable practices have tended to incur higher operating costs. Example, landfill tax, fines, and penalties. On the other hand, businesses that implement sustainable practices have lower costs, benefit from a better brand reputation, and attract investment. Today's customers are becoming more aware of social and environmental issues and are looking to see how their purchases can limit their negative impact on the environment. Consequently, they look to see which companies are acting in an environmentally responsible way and tend to support them. Companies could set targets such as improved efficiency of water usage, engaging with suppliers to invest in sustainable farm practices, using more fuel-efficient deliveries, lorries, using recycling materials in product and packaging design. Another factor that could influence sustainable development is sustainable business development. These days, customers are aware that businesses have to be socially responsible. So they might use their purchasing power to influence businesses' behavior, because now there's evidence that businesses that are socially responsible are incurring lesser costs compared to businesses that are socially irresponsible. Businesses that fail to use sustainable practices incur more operating costs because they have to pay fines, they have to pay landfill taxes, they have to pay penalties, and this increases their cost. compared to businesses that are, that are inclined with sustainable practices. And that can also bring about sustainable development. Then the last one is sustainable government development. For sustainable government development, we're talking about what government could do to encourage sustainable development. The Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 called for action throughout the world to achieve a more sustainable environment. The milestone, the Millennium Summit in 2000, set out targets known as the Millennium Development Goals, and in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted. The Europe 2020 strategy sets targets in areas such as employment, research and innovation, climate change and energy, education, poverty, and social exclusion. Building on the work of the above, organization and Congress, the Sustainable Development Council, our Sustainable Future, a framework for sustainable development in Ireland was created. So government must also encourage sustainable development through practices. So look at the themes for the SDC in Ireland. We have economy, promote. So what are the themes? The economy, to promote an innovative, competitive, and low carbon economy with the aim of achieving smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. So the economy, the aim for the economy is to ensure that it's able to promote innovation without pollution. Satisfaction of human needs by the efficient use of resources. Prices should reflect the real cost of society of production and consumption activities. Producers should pay for the damage they cause to human health and the environment. Satisfaction of human consumption, human needs. That means prices should be affordable and prices should reflect on the real cost of the society. Equity between generations. The need of current generations should be addressed without compromising the ability for future generations. So everybody must have equal opportunity. That is also part of the sustainable development in Ireland. Gender equality. Women must have the same right as men. Respect for ecological integrity and biodiversity. The abundance of wildlife and extent of habitats should be maintained, improved, and restored when necessary to sustainable development. The habitat must be respected. Social equality. Social inclusion should be promoted to ensure an improved quality of life for all. So the society must include both the minority and the majority. Equity between countries and regions. They should promote fundamental rights by combating all forms of discrimination and contributing to the reduction of poverty. Promote coherence between local, regional, and national, EU, and global actions in order to increase their contribution to sustainable development. All countries must work hand in hand to ensure that there's sustainable development. And lastly, decision making. Decision making should be done that guarantees the rights of citizens by allowing them access to information and public participation. With all this, there will be sustainable development. So the overall aim of our sustainable future was to provide a framework for the integration of sustainable development into areas of policy, to put implementation mechanisms in place, and to deliver the concrete measures to progress sustainable development. So the aim is to ensure that sustainable development comes from individuals, firms, and government, because without the cohesion between individuals, firms, and government, there won't be sustainable development. So the key challenges identified in achieving sustainable development can be summarized as this: one, sustainability of public finances and economic resilience. Finance is a problem. To have a specific, way of maintaining a sustained public finance might be difficult. Two, conservation and management of natural resources. It's difficult to save resources because resources are used when it comes to economic growth. Climate change and clean energy. It is difficult to maintain a clean energy, and the environment is continuously changing over time. Sustainable agriculture and transportation. There's always going to be weather conditions that hinder the growth of agriculture. Social inclusion. How is it? It is difficult to include everybody in society into one perspective. Sustainable communities and spatial planning. Communities are diverse, and as a result of that, it will be difficult to put them together. Public health. Health is expensive, and some countries do not still have access to better health care. Education and behavior change. not everybody has equal opportunity when it comes to education. Education is expensive, and as a result of that, people might still not have access to the basic education. Innovation, skills, and training. Skills, innovation, and training are expensive, and as a result of that, some society might still be lacking this time. And global prosperity. Global prosperity is difficult to achieve because if there's global prosperity, it simply means that everyone has left, there's no poverty anymore, and that is difficult. So it is an ambitious but crucial task to protect and regenerate our natural environment. Though it is ambitious and it is crucial to do, but the following that I've read are the hindrance to sustainable development. So that ends sustainable development. So in the next class, we're going to go to chapter 4, which is the market economy. Thank you.